We have been discussing about early Greek philosophers, and we continue our discussion with yet another Greek philosopher, Empedocles. This is Dr. Ananya Barua, Associate Professor in the Department of Philosophy, Hindu College. Now, the first question that we all should be acquainted by now is how and why was Empedocles a unique philosopher? Quickly, let us recap. Empedocles is one of the most fascinating and unique figures in early Greek philosophy. He occupies a pivotal place in the pre-Socratic tradition and is often seen as bridging myth, science, and metaphysics. Empedocles stands out for several reasons. First, inventor of the four-element theory. Empedocles was the first philosopher to propose that all matter is composed of four fundamental roots: earth, water, fire, and air. He is the first who is a celebrated pluralist over the predecessing monists. The second and the most important is philia and strife, or love and strife, the forces of cosmic change. Empedocles introduced two opposite cosmic forces: love, which unites and blends the elements; strife, which separates and causes disintegration. This dual force theory was profoundly original. It explains cosmic cycles, biological evolution, and even psychological conflict, all within a single system. The third important point of Empedocles is about mysticism and poetry. Empedocles wasn't just a rational philosopher. He wrote in hexameter verse like Homer, and his surviving fragments come from two epic poems on nature and purifications. These works blend philosophical reasoning with religious mysticism, claiming that humans are fallen divine beings subject to reincarnation. Through ritual purity and wisdom, one can return to the divine. He claimed to be a divine being himself, having captured death. This blend of philosophy, poetry, science, and self-deification makes him highly distinctive. The fourth important part of Empedocles is the proto-scientific insights. Empedocles did make important natural observations, especially in biology, physics, psychology, and these proto-scientific ideas point towards a systematic empirical curiosity that anticipates the natural sciences. So now the question is, to which school of Greek thought did Empedocles belong to? Empedocles is considered a pre-Socratic philosopher, and more specifically, he belongs to the pluralist school of cosmology. He follows the Eleatics, Parmenides and Zeno, in rejecting generation and destruction, but unlike them, he tries to explain change through recombination of immutable elements. He is a contemporary of Anaxagoras and shares similarities with his pluralist metaphysics, though they differ sharply in detail. Empedocles is not a sophist nor a strict Milesian monist, but part of the Western Greek tradition, especially connected to Pythagorean and Orphic religious thought. Thus, Empedocles does not belong to a formal school like the Academy or Lyceum, but he represents an eclectic and original fusion of natural philosophy and religious cosmology. The further question that can be posed here is then, can Empedocles be classified as an early Greek philosopher? Yes. Empedocles is unmistakably an early Greek philosopher. He did flourish in the 5th century BCE, roughly contemporary with Anaxagoras, Parmenides, and Heraclitus. He is part of what we now call the pre-Socratic thinkers. Although the term could be misleading, many of them, including Empedocles, had profound influence on Plato, Aristotle, and Hellenistic science. So Empedocles was unique, for we had noticed that he was the first who had proposed the first systematic pluralism of elements. He introduced love and strife as metaphysical forces. He combined scientific thinking with religious mystical vision. He wrote in poetic form claiming divine status. He created a framework for understanding cosmic cycles, biological life, and spiritual purification. He remains a complex figure, not easily classifiable at once, a natural philosopher, a mystique, a proto-scientist, and a poet-prophet. Empedocles' discovery of the four-element theory was not a discovery in the modern scientific sense, which is via experiment or empirical proof, but rather a philosophical and metaphysical insight, a way of explaining change, diversity, and stability in the natural world that addressed the limitations of previous thinkers. Now, when we look at the philosophical context of Empedocles, the reaction to early thinkers, we see that Empedocles was responding to major thinkers before him, especially Parmenides, who argued that change is illusory, true being is unchanging and one. Heraclitus, who claimed that everything is in flux, famously saying, quote, "You cannot step into the same river twice," unquote. Milesians like Thales, Anaximenes, and Anaximander, who sought a single underlying substance, example water, air, the boundless, to explain everything. So we see that Empedocles saw problems in these monistic explanations. If everything comes from one thing, how can we explain true diversity in nature? And if change is impossible, as Parmenides claimed, how do we explain our experience of growth, decay, motion, and transformation? So he proposed a pluralist solution. While Empedocles didn't conduct scientific experiments, he was a keen observer of natural phenomena and drew inspiration from everyday experiences. That plants need earth, water, air, and sunlight or fire to grow was yet another observation. Further observations like living beings seem to be made of a mixture of substances is the other empirical observation of nature that Empedocles had. Burning, melting, drying, soaking, rotting, all visible processes could be seen as the interaction of basic forces or materials is what Empedocles observed. These practical observations supported his view that no single element could account for all things. So we see that the pluralist stance of Empedocles vis-a-vis the four roots, earth, water, air, and fire, comes as a Big Bang theory. Empedocles proposes that everything is composed of four roots: earth for stability and solidity, water for fluidity, nourishment, air for breath, soul, motion, and fire for energy, light, transformation. He believed that these roots are eternal and unchanging, not created or destroyed, capable of combining in different proportions to form all things. This was an elegant solution. The illusion of change is due to the rearrangement of unchanging elements. Further, the notion of love and strife, the forces of mixture and separation, is yet another important theory that Empedocles had floated. To explain how these elements interact, the four roots, which is earth, water, air, and fire, Empedocles added two metaphysical forces: philia, which is love, which brings the elements together into harmonious mixtures, and strife, or nekos, which separates and dissolves the mixture. These forces cause the cyclical processes of the universe. At times, love dominates. All elements are then in unity. Then, when strife reasserts itself, disintegration and separation occur. This cosmic dance is reflected in the cycles of birth, decay, and regeneration in nature. Further, we also see a poetic revelation and divine light in Empedocles' philosophy. Empedocles did not frame his theory as cold analysis. Instead, he presented in the epic poetry as if the truth were revealed through divine vision. There is a quote, "Hear first the four roots of all things, Zeus, fire, Hera, air, Edionos, earth, and Nestis, water." This quotation is the blending of mythological imagery with rational explanations was powerful. It suggested that understanding nature was also a spiritual and philosophical quest. So, our question right now should be at this juncture, how did Empedocles discover the four elements? Empedocles did reject monism and sought to explain both change and permanence. He observed nature and saw multiple irreducible principles at work. He proposed that four eternal, irreducible roots combined and separated under the influence of love and strife. He presented his insights poetically as revelations of cosmic truth. Empedocles' four-element theory deeply influenced Plato and Aristotle, who adapted and systematized the idea. Medieval alchemy, with the four elements and four humors, later science until modern chemistry replaced the model. In many ways, Empedocles represents an early attempt to reconcile science, philosophy, and myth. And that is part of what makes his vision so enduring and profound. Empedocles' introduction of love and strife as cosmic forces has been the most profound and original ideas in early Greek philosophy. While he did not discover them like physical forces in the modern science, he conceived them as metaphysical principles, intended to explain how unity and diversity, order and disorder, creation and destruction operate in the cosmos. Now, there is a philosophical problem here. How can change happen without generation or destruction? Empedocles was wrestling with a major philosophical challenge. Parmenides, a major influence, argued that nothing truly comes into being or perishes. Reality is eternal, unchanging, and one. Yet, our senses show constant change, birth, growth, decay, conflict, harmony. Empedocles accepted Parmenides' claim that being cannot come from non-being, but he disagreed that change is an illusion. So, he needed a way to explain change without contradiction. The solution? He proposed that what appears as generation and destruction is in fact the mixing and unmixing of eternal elements, earth, air, fire, water. But what causes these elements to mix and separate? That's where love and strife enter as the agents of motion and transformation. Empedocles was steeped in Orphic, Pythagorean, and Greek religious traditions. These traditions personify cosmic forces, example Eros as the primal unifier, chaos as the divider. He viewed the cosmos as a moral and spiritual drama, not just a physical machine. Mythic and religious roots. So we see that instead of proposing impersonal mechanisms, Empedocles mythologized the forces of nature: philia, love; harmony, attraction, unification; neikos or strife, division, conflict, destruction. These weren't just metaphors for him, they were real principles, personified but active in everything: stars, plants, animals, emotions, and fate. Empedocles also, from his observations from nature and human life, he likely abstracted these forces from watching in nature vis-a-vis seasons, storms, earthquakes, fertility, decay, all suggesting cycles of construction and destruction. In human relationships, love binds families and societies, strife breaks them apart. In biology, bodies are harmonious mixtures. Sickness is often a disturbance or imbalance. He universalized these patterns, turning psychological and physical experiences into cosmic metaphysics. Cosmic cycle theory, an elegant dualism, we see that Empedocles imagined the universe moves in cycles under the alternating dominance of love and strife. Love dominates when all four elements come together in a perfect sphere, unity, harmony. When strife invades or hatred invades, the sphere breaks apart, elements separating and conflicting. Worlds and beings form in the intermediate stages through partial mixtures. Eventually, strife or hatred is complete. Then again, love returns, returning the elements. This eternal cycle solves the philosophical problem of change without requiring creation or annihilation. About poetic and prophetic intuition, Empedocles did not just analyze the cosmos, he felt its rhythms and believed himself to be a seer or divine prophet. In his poem Purifications, he says, quote, "There is a double tale I shall tell. At one time all things become one alone, out of many. At another again they separate into many out of one." Unquote. This expresses a visionary insight. The cosmos swings like a pendulum between oneness and multiplicity, driven by the push and pull of love and strife. Now, when we talk about full separation, we have to understand that strife dominates. The elements are fully disintegrated. The world is in chaos and conflict, and nothing can properly come together. Then there is a stage of return of love. Love reasserts itself, reblending the elements, giving rise to new organisms, order, and life. Then the cycle repeats eternally. Thus, love and strife are the two poles of cosmic activity, moving the universe through endless phases of unity and diversity, life and death, order and disorder. So, how did Empedocles arrive at love and strife? We can see that the source of insight had the philosophical need to reconcile unity and change. Eternal elements need movers. Religious mythic thought, eros and chaos reimagined as cosmic forces with moral implications. Observation of nature, birth, growth, decay, reflect, attraction, and repulsion. Psychological analogy, human emotions reflect larger cosmic forces. Poetic, prophetic vision, we see expressed in verse. The forces are symbolic, real, and spiritual. So we see that Empedocles had arrived at love and strife through various insights which have been philosophical need, religious mythic thought, observation of nature, psychological analogy, and poetic prophetic vision. We shall be carrying more about the legacy of Empedocles of love and strife, for it did influence Plato's concept of eros and discord in the soul. Further, the legacy on Aristotle's efficient and final causes is telltale, and alchemy and Renaissance cosmology is also palpably seen. Modern ideas of dynamic duality, creation, destruction, entropy, negotropy, yin yang are the further effects or impacts that we see in the modern ideas. Thus, Empedocles' philosophy of love, philia, and strife, neikos, as opposing forces in the cosmos has deep parallels in other philosophical, religious, and metaphysical traditions. Many systems, both ancient and modern, have posited dual principles to explain cosmic order and change. We will be discussing more of Empedocles in our next lecture. Thank you so much.